All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a first in the history of, well, the very short history of Showtime with Jordan von Haslow. Yesterday, I had a wonderful guest on, Jonathan Burkhead, and we had an amazing conversation. Those of you who are listening, either live on Hot 7025 FM or through the Mixler app, I heard a wonderful conversation, and I planned on also recording it as I usually do, so we can share it on YouTube, we could share it on Instagram, we could share it on Facebook. Guess what? I forgot to press record. I'm really useless here working from home, but we're back today, all fresh-faced. You have a different T-shirt on.
I do.
Yeah. So what does that say?
I don't give a dep.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
I certainly do. And also, it's very reminiscent of my personality. Because my autocorrect does weird shit like all the time. So it's just I'm like, and sometimes it's it's intended to fix things, but it just makes you sound less intellectual.
There are so many people who probably think I'm so incredibly illiterate as a result of what the autocorrect has been doing. And I keep hearing, do you hear that dinging? I think that I have my Facebook open, so we're going to close that as well. So then there are no interruptions and the video will be perfect and we can go from there. God, I'm blind as a bat. Hold on. Boom. Do we have any messenger? No messenger. I don't care about anything you people have to say. Nothing's going on in the world, so you have nothing that you really need to be talking to me about.
Pretty much.
Okay, so Orville Peck, I still am convinced, because after we had our conversation yesterday, I started reading about him and all that. I'm telling you, I really, really do think that Justin Peck is either the alter ego of Justin Bieber or Francis Bean. I really do.
Well, I'm hoping it's the latter, as I disclosed yesterday. That would be terrible if it were Justin Bieber. Just to give my 2 cents on that.
So what's on your agenda for today? Do you have any posts scheduled for today on your Instagram?
I've actually been after we spoke, I became inspired by something, and I'm very happy to announce it. So just get ready. You're going to love it. Okay. So remember I was telling you about kind of doing the reviews track for track.
Yes.
I thought this would be a great opportunity to really start engaging with my vinyl community on Instagram. So I'm messaging a few of my followers, especially the ones I speak to most often. And I wanted to see if they could possibly do a Skype one with me. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the album. We're going to see how we contrast, how we're similar. It's just going to be a very interesting.
Oh, that's experience. So cool.
Yeah. I was like, that would be a perfect thing to do. I was like, why not? That would be great to, just get other people involved. And I just have to convince them that it's okay to be a little camera shy. It's okay. You don't have to be pseudo-intellectual like some critics are with music. Just state what you want to state. As vague as it is, as weird as it is, as descriptive as it is, just go for it.
Totally. That's awesome. So have you booked your first one? Do you know when you're going to start recording?
I'm hoping I can start either this week. I am trying to the one that I want to begin with. I'm hoping that I can get him to just overcome his anxiety over it, because I feel like he would just be the perfect person to start with. And which album we're going to choose, that's going to be another story. But that will be the easier part, as long as I can just be reluctant about doing it. We're good.
Well, it's so funny because I think I feel like because now we're like in kind of like the selfie world, I feel like people are less camera shy than they previously were, simply because people are always looking at themselves in their phone and talking to people on their phone and going live for little things. So I think you'll actually find it relatively easy. People are turning hams.
It's just gonna be so much fun. That's all I'm looking forward to. Like it's gonna happen. It's gonna be so much fun. Someone's gonna be reluctant. We're gonna get this ball rolling for once. Seriously.
Totally. So are you only doing it on Instagram, or are you doing it on Facebook as well, or are you still kind of figuring out what that's gonna look like?
I'm hoping this can go on YouTube first, because I just feel like this would be. Even though Instagram does have like a lot of video feeds and it is kind of increasing amongst that medium, I still feel that YouTube would be the best place to start. But Instagram would be a perfect way to reach out to these people, and also a way to promote it as well. So through the stories, especially, because everyone's doing the stories nowadays. ways, you know.
Totally. Oh my God. So after we spoke yesterday, I'm working on a couple of music projects right now. And so I've been listening to a lot of music. And so I started drinking wine. And somehow I was listening to I went from like Van Halen into like gospel and ended up like on the original Broadway cast recording of Annie. So it was the most bizarre smorgasbord of music, but I was totally in a zone. Have you been listening to any music this morning?
I listened to the Sugar Cubes' "Life's Too Good" album. I really enjoy it. And the thing about, I guess, kind of funny, Devin and I are kind of a little controversial about that album, just because he's a very huge advocate of the Sugar Cubes. I'm more of an advocate toward Bjork's solo career.
Uh-huh.
So we do tend to. He does feel like Bjork betrayed them a little bit, and I just feel that Bjork became better after Sugar Cubes. Although I do love that one album there was. Like that's a whole other debate. Well, that's probably going to be something we'll do in the future. We'll see.
That actually I think is a really interesting concept because you have a lot just musically just throughout history, like Sugar Cubes, like Diana Ross and the Supremes, like Destiny's Child and Beyonce, where you have people who have very, very strong thoughts either way. I think that could be like an interesting regular segment that you produce.
I'd be more interested to see like who would actually be an advocate of Dawn Robinson like leaving En Vogue. Although the thing is that definitely didn't work out for her at all. So, it's good to sense.
From what I understand, I've never met her, but we have some people in common. She seems a little. I think she's a little nutty.
She's a little nutty.
Nutty. Let's just say that. She seems like she's a little nutty. But then again, I think most creative people are, right? Like I think a lot of the people who are really good, whether they're really famous or just even just people I know in my daily life who are like, really creative and really like outside of the box, they tend to be, when you like look at their behavior or some of the stuff that comes out of their mouth, you're like, you're a stone cold fool.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because the thing is, especially like, when you're marketing yourself, like I think that they're already kind of there's like an egotistical or narcissistic thing that kind of comes with it sometimes. It's not like, I think that people that want to market themselves necessarily are, but it just, you instantly have to battle that. So it's just kind of like, how do you remain like, modest, but also outgoing at the same time with that?
Yeah.
It's a difficult feat.
Yeah, but I find a lot of creative people though are just like totally in their own world and like oblivious to the world around them. And so again, they say like and do like some of the craziest things because they're just like so in their head. I don't know. That's just my experience. Okay. I think this is like a really, really awesome like concept. It's really, tell me about your community. Like, are they very much engaged, and do you talk to a lot of the folks? Because I know, as I've really, like, one of the things has been kind of like a running joke just on this show is that my social media game sucks, and I've been slowly working on getting better, and I've been working with consultants and kind of learning what I should be doing, and man, it's hard work.
It is.
Like, and the community, like I feel like I get so many like DMs and I get so many, it's like, how do you find time to like interact and keep conversations with so many people?
So I mean, mainly the ones that I DM. It's been pretty obvious like who actually wants to continue DMing and who doesn't. So if they don't want to keep this conversation going, then obviously it's just they'll like either like the message and then just move on. That's a new way of just acknowledge. It's like, I read your message, but I don't want to say anything else. But a few I've really just like, I think I've even developed some legitimate friendships with some of these people too. I mean, the thing is like we go beyond the realm of music. We've discussed our personal lives, our family lives, everything. So mainly the people that I follow, it's really a mixed bag of people. I would say that I have a lot of people who, especially a lot of my LGBT followers, I think they definitely like a lot more of the pop than the R&B. So they have some really cool vinyl. I'll tell you that because all these like a lot of them like to collect the colored ones.
Uh-huh.
So they like to, just make it kind of like, I think I even have a follower. There's a rainbow vinyl, I think. And so he mostly posts a colored vinyl. It's really creative. I think that's really cool. On the contrary, I definitely have very traditional people as well, like ones who actually collect, original pressings, or ones that actually collected, records when they were actually published and not replaced by CDs or replaced by digital media.
Yeah.
And also, I just get these people who my favorite ones are the ones I could never map out exactly what they're going to purchase or what they're going to post. I was like, I had no idea you were going to actually, like this album. This is great. I just love the ones that are a little esoteric. Those are the ones I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Do you have anyone's feed that you like are every day you have to see what they're doing, what's going on? Who's your favorite feed at the moment?
Oh gosh, that's good. I was like, I don't know if that would be a controversial one or not.
Just the one, and taking nothing away from all the other feeds, but the one that like most recently you're like, oh my goodness, they're really killing it with like what they're publishing.
I'd have to say like, really two stand out to me. So I have this guy I talked to on there named Rodney. He's a really cool guy. I think it's RSJ Vinyl 1973. I believe that's his full name. And he, the thing I like about him is that he's very community oriented. So he really does try to engage people like I do. And that's something I really appreciate. So I always follow him very closely. The other one that I think, she's got a huge following on there. I think she has about like 4,000, 5,000 followers. And she's this Finnish girl. Her name is Maria. And hers is Vinyl Favorites on there. And so she does a lot of cool kind of Model-esque things with it, but she also keeps it very traditional too. And so she mixes both those worlds very well together.
Well, you say she's from Finland. It's so funny. So one of the projects I'm working with some musicians in Europe, and I've gotten so so I've started listening to like a lot of like Icelandic music and like and a lot of Nordic music on my Spotify, and I find it so fascinating because I think being in the States, and particularly being someplace like say LA, you kind of forget that there's like an entire world outside of the world in which you live, culturally, and I'm finding it really fascinating. Like you said, like someone like her, like how what they choose, like what they're choosing to curate and what they're glomming onto, what they're listening to that's kind of like local versus what like American music they're listening to. I think it's really interesting to kind of dissect like how that comes together, if that makes sense. Like just I find it really fascinating.
What also is very fascinating. You kind of forget that, what's so huge and ubiquitous in the States is like nothing in another country.
They're like, who?
And like, I remember when I posted a Matchbox 20s yourself or something like you, like things like if you were around in 97 or 90, it's like you couldn't escape Matchbox 20. Like if you were watching VH1 or listening to the radio. And I remember one of my friends from the UK was just all like, never heard of them. I was like, I'll have to invest. I was like, really? Kind of things. Like it just kind of blows my mind, a little bit. But then yet again, there are other ones where you think that they're not popular in other countries, and you're just thinking, what? I was like, really? I was like, I have no idea you had a following there.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Do you have you traveled outside of the country extensively?
Yeah. Well, I lived in Mexico for 7 years, so from
I think I did know that. Yeah.
91 and 98, so pretty much my bulk of my early childhood, I spent there. Travel-wise, I've been to, Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth. It's still a little different than the States. I went to London for about 3 weeks. And I wish I could go back and have a different experience. I went with a terrible drama group. I mean, the worst people in my possible life. They were awful people.
You should have been filming that.
I know, I should have. And also Paris for a day. So I would, and a variety of small Caribbean nations I don't remember because I was way too young when we were going on cruises from Miami. So I traveled a good amount, and also I've been to about 38 states, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I don't think I've been to that many states. I'm trying to think. I guess I've been through a lot of states, but not like to spend a lot of time there. Tell me about Mexico. So your formative years,
Mhm.
especially like where you're listening to music and you're like old enough to like really say, okay, I like this and I'm gonna buy this. Tell me about what you were listening to in Mexico. I mean, like the community that you were living in. Like, were you remind me why you were living in Mexico? Was it like your work?
My my father worked for Colgate Palmolive when we were younger,
Oh,
and so he worked for the vice president of supply chain for that company, and a lot of their headquarters were in Hispanic countries. So that's how we ended up in Mexico. We lived in Puerto Rico because it was a good stepping stone for all of us. Because my father learned Spanish when he was in Puerto Rico to take on his new job, and then we weren't immediately immersed in the culture, immediately immersed in speaking Spanish. So at least we had like a little time to prepare. And then when we got to Mexico, that's when my brother and I became fluent. My mother never became fluent, and my sister as well. My sister taught in Mexico too, so
okay.
she taught there. As musically
When
though,
did your father? I'm sorry, just total change the subject. It's like 6 degrees of separation. When did your father leave Colgate? Because ironically enough, because depending on when he left, I'm sure he knows. Good friend of mine, because she used to be responsible for all of their supply chain recruitment. So
are you serious? I'm
I
going to
kid
ask
you
him
not.
now.
She was the head. She was the head of supply chain recruitment at Colgate Palmolive.
Great. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna
When
have to remember. I have to ask him.
was he still there in like the early 2000s?
Yes, he retired in 2008.
Oh, they've definitely probably worked together. Like she's made some hires for him.
Oh, he traveled all the time, so things like he was only around like at least I'd say like 1 week out of the month because like he was constantly going to plants, constantly doing observations. Like unlike a lot of executive people, like he worked his ass off. Like
Totally. Well, she
he
was
definitely was a hardworking guy.
their headquarters in New York, but I remember she would always have to go to their plant in Tennessee.
Hmm.
I remember she came back. She and her colleagues went to Dollywood, and she brought me back a Dollywood cup with my name on it. That's the closest I've ever been to Dollywood. But anyways, I digress. But I guarantee, like, she's probably like had to make hires for his team. It's such a small, random world. Anywho.
Just to let you know about Dollywood, though, if you do come visit, it's not too far from me. So
Oh, really?
no, it's pretty close.
That's so awesome. Okay, so now I'm just picturing the map. Awesome. How far away is that?
I think it's like an hour and 20 or an hour away. I think
Ha-
something like that.
have you ever been to Dollywood?
I have not, but I intend to go.
Well,
So
so because I had a friend, one of my oldest friends, we were like all geeked up on the idea. Let's go to Dollywood. Let's go to Dollywood. So we're starting to like research it and all of this, and we're like, oh, the park is dry.
it's it's different. It's a different
Like,
experience. It's
what
not
are
like
we supposed to do then? We're not going to go bar hopping through the Smoky Mountains. Like, so we kind of just nixed the idea.
it's true. It's a little more conservative than some places, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but anyway, back to you asked about like how like I became like involved in music and everything. There, very interesting scenario when I was in Mexico. One thing that I think a lot of people maybe might not think is that Mexico was actually pretty much a hub for like all the international music. So pretty much whatever was popular in Europe was played on the radio.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was like a lot of I would say like a lot of Scandinavian groups, and of course in the '90s, like there were all those German Euro pop dance songs. Like it had that
The Ace of Bases and stuff like that. Like the
Black Box, Snap, CNC Music Factory, a Real McCoy, big one
Real
there.
McCoy.
Culture Club, Culture Beat, excuse me, Culture Beat. But it's kind of like it always had that formula. It's like you had like some gay German rap guy, and then you had like some girl who could like pretty much sing. Like she had a pretty decent voice and everything. So yeah, that's pretty much the formula that you had back then. It was great. I loved it all. It was fantastic.
That's what were you really listening to? I mean, because I know we've talked a lot about what you were like listening to like in the late '90s. Like, what were you really into like during that time in your life?
Anything I could see on MTV, anything I could see on VH1, anything I could hear on the radio. There were two radio stations I listened to in Mexico City. One was Alpha 91.3, 91.3, and there's also Azul 89. So blue, and the Azul 89 is actually an adult contemporary station. So it would play actually all the stuff that was popular in America on adult contemporary radio. That's why my parents loved. My mother was always current
and all that stuff.
Media, like Michael Bolton, all that great stuff that we love so much. Wilson Phillips, yeah, all that. But no, I mean, it was like, it was definitely, I got exposed to a lot of things I wouldn't have been exposed to if I were growing up in the States, but I also got exposed to all the things that were popular in the States as well. And, and I'd say Mexico has a lot of versatility when it comes to, their musical preferences. They definitely like rock, they definitely like their traditional music, they definitely like dance, they definitely like hip hop. You name it. So they're very versatile. Their musical tastes.
That's so fascinating. Is there anything that you like don't like? Like, I just cannot bring myself to, I don't know, listen to smooth jazz, or I cannot just get into, I just can't get into this. Or is there anything that you're like, oh, no?
I'd say a lot of like noise rock I don't necessarily like if it's just like so experimental to like the max, like it's just the most obscure thing you possibly can have. Like sometimes like there are exceptions if it has some hooks, if like that music has some hooks in it, like it can be like kind of like Pavement kind of does that. They have like kind of a very raw sound, but they do incorporate these hooks that are incredible.
Yeah.
But also I don't like trap. Like I don't like things that like are just like completely obnoxious. Like it's kind of like I like especially like the thing that makes trap different from rap or hip hop is the fact that hip hop can have some melody to it, it can have some versatility, and also it can have some meaning to it. Trap is kind of like the hair metal of rap for the most part. It's just kind of trashy, misogynistic, party shit that I can't. It's just noise to me. It sounds like noise to me. That's what I think about that. So I'd say those two, and also country pop is really bad. I actually do like some country, but when it's just like the new fad that I see going around is like it's this snappy country. So like snap. It's like there's nothing snappy about country. I mean seriously, who the fuck came up with snaps? Honestly, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I'd say those are the vibe. I think say those are the main the major infractions in my musical world would be those three genres.
Awesome. And in your collection, do you have, or is it kind of like choosing like Sophie's choice, your favorite album hands down? Like if we're quarantining you on a desert island with a record player and electricity, and you can only bring one album for however long you're stuck quarantined.
Here's the thing, Jordan. Since I'm redoing that list, I just can't reveal that album is. I want it to be a little bit surprised. Some people already know it, but at the same time, I want it to be a little bit of surprise. I will give you a hint. She's very angry. That's all I can say. Like that could be any of those ladies. That could be any of them. I don't know.
Seriously, dag nabbit. Are you a Madonna fan?
I'm a huge Madonna fan. I really hate her new stuff a lot. Like Madam X, like the things like Madam X is the worst piece of crap I've ever heard in my life. It's terrible. But I remember I even said, I said, for every like a prayer, there's always a Madam X.
Right. Have you been following her on the Instagram? I feel like her Instagram page is nuts.
She's always been a little nutty for her. Like she has a very strange persona. I just like she always has these very huge, like very close ups of her face, and also it's always her like kind of her rigorous workout routine and all her Madam X rumors, which I'll give her credit. The thing I love about Madonna is that Madonna does what Madonna wants to do. And she can. I mean, the thing is like, there's not going to be even if she's not as relevant in the mainstream communities as she was in the past, she's still going to be the biggest female pop star who will ever exist. Like hands down. There's no one that's going to have impact like Madonna. That's
totally.
Just a fact. But yeah, I've been following her a lot. She's always just like things that she used to be a trendsetter. She used to be someone who could like basically turn any music and make it accessible and everything like that. And I was always impressed with that. Nowadays, I just think that she's just, being just as eccentric as can be and everything. It just seems like she's kind of taken on this eccentric approach, but hey, more power to her if that's what makes her happy.
Totally. Yeah,
She doesn't do
absolutely.
anything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to figure out what, because like you said, she used to be a trendsetter, and she used to, or she could, hear things that were like happening, like more like a club level, and say like, oh wait, yeah, this is gonna be hot. But now it's like I don't know. I always wonder like is she still like inspired musically, and like she's just like, what, this is what I'm really feeling and this is what I'm hearing, or is she kind of like trying to chase trends? Because one of the things I do think she did, and she did well, was, I would say over the last 10-15 years, she would always do like a duet with like someone who's really really hot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember, like she did the duet with the Justin Timberlake, and then she was like working with
Boo. Yeah.
Boo on that song or Boo on Justin Timberlake?
Boo on both.
You're not a
Boo
Justin.
on boy bands in general. I hate that.
Hate boy band?
Oh, the R&B ones were fine. Those are the ones that didn't bother me much. But all the plethora of little, the ones that like made teenage girls like have an orgasm at like a 5-mile radius and they freaked out all the time just drove me insane. Like,
how come was it that you just didn't like the music? Like it was too middle of the road poppy for you, or
things like the way that okay.
Or did they
like, I just don't find anything
during the Backstreet Boy audition? Did they cut you during the original Backstreet Boy audition, and you're still holding a grudge?
I'm still like trying to get over that. It was a difficult time in my life, Jordan. We don't need to bring that up. I just don't think there's just anything attractive about the guy's view. Yeah, and also like because like they always have those very arrogant faces, and the one that didn't bother me though was those 98 Degrees guys, because at least they were like trying to sting and trying to serenade and everything like that. So like they were okay. They weren't as annoying as NSYNC was or Backstreet Boys, and also the thing that really pissed me off about them coming into fruition is that teen pop has always existed, and usually is just a temporary fad. It goes away. We forget about it, But what happened was, these girls go from like, listening to all these empowered women, and like during the Lilith Fair craze and everything like that, and also during like, all the indie rock, female artists and everything like that. And then those women gravitated toward those stupid teen pop stars afterwards. So things like, I just felt like it just made people dumber, in my opinion. Like, that they were liking all this stupid, vapid, overly manufactured crap. And the biggest problem was that they built on it. The thing is, that music's not supposed to inspire anyone. The thing is, because of Britney Spears, we got Rihanna. Because of, all this, like, they were inspired by these people. And, like, no offense to, Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, all of them. Like, they have some talent and everything, but they're not deep. They're not introspective or anything like that. So, that's just my personal opinion. Like what you like. I'm not going to.
This is true, but I think we've kind of progressively moved to like, although I take that back, there has always been not deep music, and like,
of course,
even from people who are considered geniuses. I'm sorry, She Loves Me, yeah, is not actually Shakespeare prose.
Oh yeah. Well, before the Beatles became experimental, their music was shit. I mean, the thing is, like, seriously, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, very generic pop songs that anyone could have written, really. And, it wasn't until Revolver where they actually were like, oh, this is some weird kind of crazy experimental shit. And then it just inspired a lot of crap afterwards. A lot of good stuff, not crap. But I don't, and also the thing is, it's tough to even make these opinions because it's like, I'm definitely not an expert on it. Music is subjective, but I don't know. It's just I just like I like some fun stuff, but I also like a lot more substance.
Bad. You can find there's stuff that's just crap, and it's yes, music is subjective, but it's kind of like the what's his name, the judge who did the Mapplethorpe trial in Cleveland. He's like porn. I can't define it, but I know what it is when I see it. Pornography. And I think it's the same way. Crappy music. Okay. You may not be able to totally define it, but you know what? When it comes on, you know exactly that it's crap.
Well, I'd say you can't really, justify I mean, granted, she has a huge cult following. Like, you can't even justify people like Samantha Fox. Like, she's not talented per se, or sorry, or
Fox. Oh, we're about to start fighting.
I know, right? I was like, let's start duking it out. Or like Willow Smith, or that who's that? The one that did Annoying Friday song, that Rebecca Black girl. Oh, it's awful. It's so terrible. Who else just kind of sucks?
Well, but it's I think it's like it's a thing, right? Because it's not just having the good music and having the good image, it's also just having the good fortune of dropping your album or kind of coming into the public view at exactly the right time, and I think that Samantha Fox is the perfect example of that, right? She came around at this time where she had the right look. She wasn't like heavy rock, but she had the rock chick. You know what I mean? She was kind of like a Kelly Bundy she was like perfect of the time. And people kind of knew her from being a page 3 girl. So it's like this perfect storm. And then they, put her with the full force. And it was just like, it was just a perfect storm. And had she, say, been 5 years older or 5 years younger, she probably wouldn't have had the career that she had.
And I also think I'd say like her popularity mainly came from it was definitely very image based, because I think at one point she was the most photographed woman in England after Princess Di. I think that there was some statistic like that.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. So she was like her tits were like that popular, and you're very, the thing is, like, one thing we could always focus on, timing is just so crucial. Also, it just seems like you just kind of have to, there's a little bit of luck you have to have that sort of exposure. I mean, the thing is, especially if you look at like Instagram pages, like, people like, say I don't have that many followers on Instagram, but if I post an album, like, album post, like, it'll get like 50 likes, and someone can post the same exact album, it looks the same exact way, but that one can get like 1,000 likes for some reason, even if they don't even have that many followers. I mean, it's very strange. Like, it's more like who posts the thing as opposed to what the
very
content
much is. And the thing that stinks about that is that horrible algorithm of Instagram and Facebook, which I kind of think, I'm actually shocked, as we move to like, digital advertising is kind of like where we are in the world. I find it so fascinating that it's not more heavily regulated. Like, think about it. Like, buying an ad on a social media site is the only place in the world where you pay money and they don't disclose exactly how that money works. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know the algorithm. You're just like, okay, here's X amount of dollars, make it seen. But there's no disclosure of exactly how it's going to seen, who's going to be seen, or what the mechanism.
Very vague.
And I find it so fascinating. I don't know.
Well, I almost worked for someone who wanted me to do these thumbnails for this review, review site I was going to work for in LA. And, he was like, I didn't know what he actually wanted me to do, just because like he would just, the job description was so vague. I was just like, I mean, if you give me like just a little bit of guidance on it, I can create it, but I really don't know what I'm doing at all. Like, just because I have no idea what concept I'm supposed to, approach. I have no clue, so. It's a little bit too ambiguous at times.
A little too ambiguous. So you were supposed to create thumbnails for like videos, or thumbnails for?
I think they were thumbnails for, like, they were going to be for movies instead of music, and like things like I have a small amount of knowledge for movies, but not like I would say like my music taste or something like that. So I don't know. It's just kind of like one of those things, like, well, hey, you want to make it in this town, like, you better, like, better get your side hustles going and everything. Which I was kind of like, I would love to do some side hustles, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because I really don't have any direction. So if I did, I could probably create something.
I love that. I'm still thinking about your new idea and what you're going to be doing on YouTube. I think that that's going to be so fascinating, and I can't wait to see it. I really
I just can't wait to get the ball rolling. I'm ready. So I just got to have, I just have to have someone to participate so we can just get this ball rolling. And I think that the more people I engage doing it and the more people will see it, I think they're like, oh, this looks like so much fun. I want to do this too. And it's really going to be open. Like, I don't have a VIP list. There's no real, qualifications, as long as you can just say something about it.
Totally. And I think that it's something that people will definitely be gravitate to, because everyone has such a personal connection to their music, right? To their music collection. And you oftentimes, I mean, yeah, you might get into a conversation at the bar and like a song will come on and you start getting into a conversation about someone, with this particular song. But like, how often do you really have an opportunity to talk about some of the deep cuts that you're like, oh my God, this song is so amazing, and people are like, what? Like, what, you know what I mean? So I predict that it's going to be very successful, and people are going to.
I do too.
People want to participate in it.
Oh, you're going to be. You tell me if you have an idea for an album you want to do. I'm very open. Like, even if it's something even I haven't heard, like, I'd be more than happy to invest in it and take some challenge.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll listen to the Samantha Fox eponymous album.
All right, we're gonna do it. Samantha Fox, it is. Is that the one with "Touch Me, I Want to Feel Your Body" or something?
No, the one after that, the one with "Naughty Girls Need Love Too."
I love that song. I don't feel like, even though I totally just bashed her, I do love that song. Especially, I just love her her thick British accent, little like wannabe rap verses.
Just maybe, when you sing after 40.
Used to be, what was it? It was like
used to be so.
Samantha Fox
so
is such a wild name. Samantha.
But that was all full force. Who themselves, I think that they were so cool in just their style and what they put out at that time, because that was a really interesting musical time, right? Because you were like, hip hop was kind of, coming into the forefront, but it wasn't like, as raw as like gangster rap, like that it would become. Disco was dying, but like this very like poppy, new wavy music was coming about. And if you listen to a lot of the folks in like the 83 to 85 period, there's a lot of like crossover in just the sound. Like if you listen, for example, like that album, even like, you have like some very much like rock tunes on it. Then you have some like traditional like 80s pop. And then it's like, oh yeah. And then there's this one like hip hop song that becomes the lead single. Right. And really, if you listen to the whole album, it doesn't even quite fit with the collection.
Kind of like Joan Osborne's Relish album, the One of Us, the What If God Was One of Us. The rest of the album is just like some crazy folky, not poppy at all kind of roses, like very deceiving, only lead single. I want to say, the only thing about the fact that, one thing I did notice about the 80s, though, is that even though there were a lot of R&B songs that were pop hits and everything, really, I would say that they still had a limit to like how much R&B they'd really expose on pop radio, and a lot of women too, a lot of female artists as well. So like, oh, we're sorry, we already got you. So the thing is, we need to take a little break. We need to like incorporate more generic, pop artists, or more generic
Totally. In fact, I feel like I read something recently. I don't know if it was an interview with Quincy Jones or, but like MTV, like initially, like would like play like no R&B and no. And I can't remember where I read it, and they kind of said that Michael Jackson was kind of the person who made them, like he kind of was like, you're not gonna get my stuff if you don't like start playing more black music on the air. And it's the same with the radio. What's interesting, and I don't know if this is like a history repeating, is how hip hop became mainstream, and now hip hop is like incorporated into kind of like it's in country music now is even the same way. But I still,
for better or worse,
but I still wonder, I mean, like I haven't like really, I don't drive, so I don't like have a radio on in my car all day. And so I don't listen. I would still wonder, like, if you listen to like the top 40 station in any city, how much of it is R&B versus how much of it is really just white pop music that incorporates a lot of hip hop. you know?
Well, to some extent, like like I don't I use this loosely, but things like to some extent, like all music is like, it's, with the exception of maybe classical music or something like that. Things like all music, especially anything popular, was originally black music. So the
Mhm.
thing is, like like think about Elvis, for instance. Like all he did was just record a lot of black artists' material because they wouldn't let any of them do it back in the day.
Totally.
Could be the same with like you could even probably root back country origins to it, to black artists as well, and jazz. So the thing is, it's always been kind of that was kind of the foundation to begin with. But what I see a lot nowadays is that there's just too much pigeonholing of everything. That's one thing I just don't understand. It's kind of like if you're a Latin artist, you sound like this. It's kind of like you can be anybody you want. You can play any genre you want. It's just I just
Totally.
feel like I wish that we could focus less on the superficial aspects and
Absolutely.
just more the substance.
And that's what I mean. Like, I feel like there was this period of time in like the early to mid 80s where it was all kind of like, not that it all sounded the same, but you could hear, you know what I mean? Hip hop had a lot of like rock and roll elements to it. You'd
Yeah.
have people like a Samantha Fox singing this rock and roll song, but like with these rap breaks. Like, I feel like there was this little period of time where there was almost like a musical melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just because of like kind of the advent of like technology and using technology as an instrument. So everyone was just kind of like experimenting and trying to figure it out. And once they did, smooth jazz came along. I don't know, like,
Well, here's the thing. Like the thing is, when it comes to like when you look at it through a mainstream perspective, it's always very temporary. Like look at grunge, as revolutionary as it was still a very temporary period. Like things
totally.
like it didn't really last in the mainstream until like post grunge took on like a whole other meaning. But then that kind of died out too. And even like I'll say like 1993 is an interesting year. 1993, the pop charts were mainly urban and R&B songs. Like seriously, it's like
Really?
that's where you got your SWV, your Tonys, your Jeanets, In Vogue, etc. I mean things like. But then it kind of became a little bit like underground after that. Like when it came to like the mainstream charts, like the pop mainstream charts, like like for instance, like Janet Jackson's "I Get So Lonely." Like that song was a top 3 hit on the Billboard Hot 100, like a number 29 hit on the mainstream chart. So it's kind of strange,
That's so
like how like that kind of that kind of happened and everything. When everything off of Janet was either a number 1 mainstream hit or a top 5 mainstream hit. So.
Totally. But Janet's also kind of like like there's certain people like a Janet, like a Madonna, who they're kind of like at this other level. So it's
Right.
just you know what I mean? Like especially
goddess level.
but you like can't even like compare them to everything else. But when you think about the early 90s, that was also, again, talking about a fad, like not a fad, but like a type of music that like all of a sudden was kind of everywhere, and then kind of but like the whole New Jack Swing era.
Mm-hmm.
That was that whole New Jack Swing era, and it was like everyone was kind of like aping that style, and like it was like, oh my god, this is like amazing. It's like soul meets pop with a little funk, with a little, and then it kind of goes away.
And I miss New Jack Swing. I think New Jack Swing was actually one of the best movements in mainstream music. I loved how versatile it was, and also like it was just so catchy. It was positive. It was
Mm-hmm.
fun. And I mean, like, and I'll tell you something. Like, one person I just don't understand why. I thought Karen White was great. I just want to put it up. She was just fantastic, and like, because she could sing and dance.
Totally.
Kind of dance, not too great, but
like a little bit.
A little bit.
Oh my god. Well, what came after New Jack Swing? Because then, so grunge was like around. I'm trying to picture like who I was friends with at the time so I can figure out how old I was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like grunge was around that same period, right? 91, 92. I feel like I was in junior high school around that.
It became mainstream. 1992 was like the year of grunge. So that's like when like you could not escape Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. Those are like the Fab Four of that genre.
Yeah. And then I guess
Pop too.
and then I guess like right after that we moved into the boy band craze and like the teeny popper phase, right? Because that would be like 94, 95.
I think that it was like beginning to set up to that. I mean, especially like what mainstream pop was. I mean, the thing is, it was like, especially after like all the grunge stuff, like
It was
Got
like
some
we
real
had enough.
radio.
Like, let's just have something kind of basic. Do you think
Yeah.
that might be kind of it? Like, oh my God, we've had this grunge. It's depressing. It's hard. It's like you kind of want to slit your wrist if you listen to too much of it because it's just
Right.
so heavy. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, hit me, baby, one more time. What a like.
Pretty much, but people don't really talk about that gap, like things like from '94 to '98. Like, people just don't really talk about that era that much. I mean,
I,
things like I guess more nowadays, like says like electronica, Britpop. Those things were like really popular in the UK at the time, and they
yeah.
were kind of like had a cult following in the US. And also like things like there was some really decent R&B too, like things like Toni Braxton especially. Like I thought that she was
Yeah.
great. She was like the second coming of Anita Baker, except a lot sexier. Very much sexier. No
But even,
offense, Anita's great.
but even she, I feel like that was. I feel like that first album came out in like 1990, maybe. No,
94,
her
93,
first
91.
album, the Tony Braxton.
Yeah.
It was that early. It was that late.
Yeah, it was 93. That's what I think 93. That's when she had that Another Sad Love Song
Yeah.
single. And in 94, she had like her even bigger hits like You Mean the World to Me and Breathe Again. And also there's a really underrated one, Seven Whole Days.
Wait, but another sad love song was on the same album as Breathe Again. Because remember, it was originally she first broke that song was included on the Boomerang film soundtrack.
Love Should Have Brought You Home. That was the one on Boomerang.
Oh, another sad love,
It,
but that's on the same album.
Yeah, and
Not,
she also had a duet with Babyface on that one too. That Boomerang soundtrack. She had a collaboration with
yeah, I
Baby.
remember that. I loved that soundtrack, by the way. Oh my God, like that's one. This is very rare, especially like with a film soundtrack, because it usually is very eclectic. Just because of the nature of it's to support what's going on the screen. But that is one soundtrack. Um, that and the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack.
I'm expecting that vinyl tomorrow, by the way.
Are you? Those are like two of like where it's just so cohesive. Even if you have different singers or different, whatever, there is not a bad song on that album. Like I just still think about PM Dawn and like that Grace Jones. Oh, I love that. I'm sorry, what?
Keith Washington. I love that Tonight It's Right. I just love that smooth little jazzy. Let's like light a candle and like have like a romantic dinner, like and then have sex afterward kind of thing. I kind of like the songs.
That you mentioned him because he popped up in my Facebook feed today. Like somebody I know like forwarded something and tagged him in it, and it's just so random to get two Keith Washington references over this in the span of like 2 hours since I haven't really heard the name in many years.
he's just making a comeback. I mean, that's just the way it is. I will say, Waiting to Exhale is probably one of the best production jobs I've ever heard. And plus, it just had like pretty much everyone you could love from female R&B in the 90s. Like I said, like I got Brandy, got SWV, you got Toni Braxton, you got Whitney, you got Mary, you got even the lesser known ones were good, like Shauna.
Like who? I'm sorry.
Shauna. That was that one. How could you call me baby? How could you call her baby? That was the song. How could you call her baby? Yes, I love that song. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's a really good period. And Keith Sweat was around in that era too, right? Like, do you?
His first two albums were the best though. Even though he had like the most mainstream, I'd say like most pop success with the one like Twisted and Nobody. And I thought
that was
I love that one he did with that. What?
Was it? When was that? What year was that? Do you know off the top
Twisted
of your...
and Nobody?
Yeah.
Twisted was 96, Nobody was 97.
Yeah.
But I love that one where it was the first album he had where it had Make It Last Forever. That was my jam. I love that song so much. Make it last forever and ever. Like had that very whitey tenor voice. So much. Oh god.
That's so amazing. Now I want to listen to the Boomerang soundtrack. That's such a good soundtrack because it's so. Oh, it's such a. It's such a good soundtrack, especially because it's a fabulous movie. Because also, I wonder why Eartha Kitt didn't do a song on that soundtrack. That's strange. I don't know. Sorry. That was random. No, she didn't. Now I'm thinking like, well, why not? But that's a side note.
Could I ask you one quick question about that movie though? Because the thing is, like, I know he was desperately trying to get with Robin Givens throughout the movie, but like I'm trying to figure out where the Eddie Murphy and Halle Berry plot came in, because like all of a sudden it's like they're supposed to be together at the end, but I didn't even see them have any chemistry or if there was a backstory or anything. So I didn't see any exposition. So I've always been perplexed by that.
Well, no, I think the whole idea is that he was just a dog, right? He was trying to get with Robin Givens, and Robin Givens was so, but she like treated him the way he always treated women, and did like a bam bam thank you man to him, so he was all butthurt, right? If I recall, I haven't seen it in a while. Halle Berry goes on a date with David Alan Grier.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? But there was no like real chemistry. Like they were really awkward. And I think it was a timing thing. She just happened to be there at the right place at the right time. He's licking his wounds and kind of looks over and is like, "Oh, you're kind of hot." And I think that did just kind of spring from that.
And she was a good balance because she was both very hot but also very she was kind of more of a good girl than Robin Givens was.
Well, exactly. Well, if you think about the movie, it's very much like Robin Givens. It's like it's very like black or white, right? Here's like the nice, pure, innocent, sweet person, and then on the other side, here's this horrible, career obsessed, sexual prowess bitch. God hell.
And we love every second of them.
No, that was one of the God. I'm so gonna listen to that soundtrack today. It was so good. What other good soundtracks came out during that time?
I would love that. I
don't remember that soundtrack very much. What was on that?
There was a remix version of SWV's Anything, even though I like the album version better. And there was also some really good, like I'll tell you something. One artist that he had some decent stuff, but like people only know him from Night and Day, and that was Albie Shore. Like so Albie Shore, it's Albie Shore. That was cool.
He had a little moment, Albie Shore. I always liked him too. That's so. Yeah, God, I've some of these names I haven't like heard in so long. I want to like go pop. One of the things I don't like, because I have a record collection and I have, I still have all the CDs that I've ever owned. But now I primarily listen to things on Spotify just because it's easy. And one of the things I hate about it is that, because like all technology, it does a lot of curation for you. Like you might be listening to something and when it ends, it takes you into something else. And it's usually really good about it. But sometimes you forget about, like I find myself kind of going to the same artists because you can go through and flip through all of the artists or all the albums in your collection, but it's not the same as when you're flipping through your physical, like, oh my God, I forgot about that album. I haven't heard that album in so long. So I do miss that because you're mentioning all of these names. Most of these albums I'm sure I own in one format or another, maybe even on cassette. But the New Jack City soundtrack. Do you remember?
Yes.
That was an awesome soundtrack.
It was kind of like I remember the movie. It was like New York's answer to Boys in the Hood, because Boys in the Hood was the L.A. movie, and then like New Jack Swing had New York.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a good soundtrack. I remember buying that. Now that I think about it, I remember I was a kid, right? Because I think that was like 89 maybe. I think that was in the late 80s. I don't think it was.
That was a 90s movie, 91.
Are you sure? How do you have this like encyclopedic like memory for dates?
It's just been something weird that I picked up when I was a kid and everything like that. And so like fortunately it stays. It gets me in trouble sometimes though, because I think it definitely would make me come off as a smart ass.
Right. You're like, no, Mom, that was 1969. You were there.
And who was it? Was that girl from Hand That Rocks the Crate? Was her Isabel Rose? No, Annabelle Sciorri.
Yeah.
Sciorri or whatever.
She wasn't in New Jack City.
Yeah. No, she was. No. Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. I was thinking Jungle Fever. Anyway. So dumb. I'm bad.
Which was also a good album. It was all Stevie Wonder. But I remember buying that in St. Louis. I remember it was like at some like street market bootleg copy out of someone's trunk. I remember I bought that cassette. I bought Tara Kemp's.
My girl Tara Kemp.
And I bought Vanilla Ice's album. And they were all bootleg copies, like to the point, like you unwrap it, like the jacket was literally like a photocopy piece of paper.
But it did its trick though. It did
Exactly.
But remember we first talked about Tara Kim when I interviewed with you, like that was my little claim to fame because I was friends with her. Oh my god, she's cool.
And that was a good album. But I always think about that because I feel like those are just a random collection to purchase in one purchase. Like, yeah, I want to listen to Iced Tea and Vanilla Ice and then jam to some club music. Like, I was a strange 10-year-old.
It's like Vanilla Ice was like fake rap, and then you have Iced Tea, which was real rap. So.
Yeah. Oh my God! What do you do? You like Vanilla Ice?
I've always been a little amused by him. I would say, like, because like he says he's like kind of like that kids like say the darndest kind of things. Vanilla Ice says the darndest kind of things. But I just my favorite thing that I ever associate with Vanilla Ice, there was this countdown called the 25 lamest videos. I think it was like 98 they did it. And I think that it had like a Greg Kinnear on it. It was Chris Kattan, Janine Garofalo, and I forgot who else was on it. But they were the top 10 worst videos they ever did. So Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth was number 10, and then right afterwards was Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, and then Vanilla Ice comes on the show, and they're going to have him demolish the videos. They're going to have him take a baseball bat to the video, and then he freaks out. On like everything, he starts like hitting everything. Like, no, it's like, calm down, Vanilla. It's like chill, Vanilla, chill. I was like, that poor guy just can't catch a break.
But I think what I do like about him is I think he's like in on the joke.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people who take themselves really, really seriously. I feel like he might be the person who's kind of in on the joke. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, he seems pretty calm, considering like he was held over a balcony by Suge Knight at one point.
He was. Oh my Jesus, dog! This whole home studio thing is really worrying my nerves. I need to be back in the radio station with an engineer, like pronto.
You're doing great, though. So I'm bringing you on. You're doing great.
Oh my God. The what time is it? Oh, I'm so blind. Hold on. Oh, we're at 56 minutes. So the show itself is 55 minutes, so we can wrap up. And I'll just edit it down a little bit and do that. Oh my God. Okay. My takeaway from this conversation is that I need to listen to the Boomerang soundtrack pronto. I need to revisit Vanilla Ice. And you need to listen to the entire canon of Samantha Fox.
Okay. Challenge, and also Annabelle Sciorra was not in New Jack City.
No.
Not at all.
Awesome.
Oh,
so we can't wait until your YouTube channel launches. Before we head out, just remind everybody where they can find you and see all of your wonderful content.
Johnny Keeps It Spinning, and I'll be updating my YouTube page to honor that as well. So it'll be Johnny Keeps It Spinning on both accounts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for doing this second interview.
We kicked ass.
We kicked ass. I will talk to you soon, and you guys watching, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, hon.
Hold on. Wait a second. I want to make sure I recorded it.